The topic we're getting stuck into today with my guest is the interplay between humanity and AI. Now, over the past couple of years, AI in all manner of forms has had top billing when it comes to airtime, whether in business, policy, development, entrepreneurship, innovation, you name it. And personally, I don't think that's likely to change, certainly for 2025. And my guest today poses many questions through his work that I think get to the real heart of both the hopes and the concerns that we have about AI and its role in our lives. I'm joined today by Sudhir Tiku. Now, Sudhir is a technical philosopher, an automation expert, an author, and a certified futurist based in Singapore. Now, he has a day job as Vice President of Asia Pacific and China at Bosch, Singapore, and he has over 2 decades of diverse experience in the automation industry, and he's had various leadership roles around the world prior to that. Now, Sudhir is a speaker, and he's a regular on the TEDx circuit across Asia Pacific on topics where he shares about AI and its impact on humanity. Sudhir, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Darshi, for having me.
So, Sudhir, ethics and AI is still very much a hot topic. And the two are very much interconnected when it comes to discussions on both the benefits and the challenges with AI. But very often, those two elements kind of, I see, get separated, and one will get amplified over the other, depending on which side of the fence you might be sitting on. So, technologists who really want to run away with all of the benefits of AI may downplay some of the risks and say, as long as we put kind of some general guardrails around, we can plow on ahead. And then we'll have the philosophers, the lawmakers, all sitting on the other side with wanting to amplify those risks and form guardrails, but battling this challenge of stifling the innovation that can come out of AI altogether. So tell us a bit about how you bring those two elements together, Sudhir, and how you've created your platform off the back of it.
Okay. So I like to answer this question in threads so that the focus is not on me, but on the topic. And AI with its scale and influence is shaping social structures, and it is also influencing private lives. And with the promise that AI has, it's going to solve the toughest challenges that humanity faces. That's for the starters. But then I think one of the challenges for current format of AI is that it gets trained on data sets which are manufactured by humans. And we are aware that the data set created by humans have clustered bias of race, gender, place, position, and most importantly, power. And this, when becomes part and becomes vectors in a computational AI process, these biases become amplified, recreated, reinforced, and hence there is a vicious cycle that we become kind of part of. And I think it will be interesting for your viewers that bias gets perpetuated because it consolidates and it institutionalizes power. So a possible solution here would be that is there a framework here which can look at this power equation and kind of moderate it and ultimately negate it? And I am personally interested by intersectional approaches towards this, because intersectional approaches are polyvocal, they are multimodal, they have diverse voice, and then diverse people like technologists, ethicists, lawyers like you can get into play and look at foreground reality of power and how to deinstitutionalize. And I think this is the crux of what exactly is happening.
Yeah.
And I, in my work, and AI is a passion and a hobby for me, I'm getting really inspired by the framework that the Alan Turing Institute has provided. And why I say this is because this is very simple, it is very intuitive, and can be easily understood. And this is an intersectional approach. And what they talk about is a 3-step process. And the first is that we need to start by asking questions, ethical questions. And here I want to lay out my definition of ethics. So ethics is what's right to do and what we have right to do. Maybe I can repeat this for the
Yes, please do.
ethics is what is right to do and what we have right. So in this framework, it starts with this encouragement and this motivation to ask questions. So the first box of this framework is reflection. Is that what is the purpose of this AI project? Who is going to get impacted? What is the net impact, etc., etc. And the guiding light of this first box is something what they call as SUM values, where SUM is the acronym, and this means for supporting, underwriting, and motivating asking of questions, right? So if the developer is a junior developer or a senior developer or a seasoned professional, everybody is motivated to ask questions, to challenge, to debate at the start of the project. Once this is figured out, that some values and ethical implication of this project have a net positive effect, then we go to the operational part and we encode into AI what we call as the FAST principles, and wherein FAST is again an acronym, where F then starts for fairness, and A is accountability, S is sustainability, and by sustainability it means the robustness of the model, and and then T is transparency. And this is the operational part of the framework, is that we are now statistically inserting these principles in the model. So now you can ask me that how do we do that? How can we, for example, insert fairness in an AI model? So there are mathematical and statistical techniques. For example, I can give you a quick example. For encoding, say, fairness in an AI model, you can calibrate. You have techniques like equalized opportunity, equalized odd. You look at false, there are false positives, and then you can really create a model of fairness in a data set, right? And then finally, we have a process-based governance framework, which connects the SUM values to the FAST principles and creates an output which has transparency not only in the process but also in the outcome. This is a framework that I think is intersectional. This is an inside-outside model and also has an outside-inside kind of an return path, and hence makes it pretty comprehensible and pretty robust. And this is what I kind of propose whenever I get an opportunity to talk with people at multiple forums, that this is a very simple framework, but really helps us to understand things in a deeper manner and also operationalize and execute in a way that it's understandable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Sudhir. I feel like there's a lot to sort of unpack through that. But one of the driving principles that came across for me when you talk about that intersectional approach is to really bring those kind of the two, what I had sort of depicted almost as two factions together right from the outset. And the way you've articulated that framework, it seems to start with those fundamental ethical questions on the why. Why are we creating this? What is the purpose? And actually, is it something that is right to do and that we have the right to do in the frameworks that we're in? And that is really asked right up front before you then get into the operational piece. And that other intersectional bit for me is bringing together throughout that process, including the operational alignment of the technical piece with that fast piece. And why this resonates a lot with me, or it kind of hits me as something a little bit different to what I feel like I've heard in that, certainly at that corporate level, I can't speak for the lawmaking type level, is that, say, in organizations tend to operate very much in silos. And sometimes I think that division occurs because someone in one part of an organization has had an idea. AI is such a powerful tool, and it is being used perceivably by so many people, and we want to keep this competitive edge. So we go straight into the what it's going to do and how it can help us in whatever that might be, where we're not used to necessarily thinking about an ethical consideration right up front. And then they've already run away with the operational piece before then someone comes in and starts to put those kind of fast type principles on it. And sometimes you then get this disconnect because you've got one side saying you need to make sure that it's fair and that it's transparent. But there may not be a clear understanding between both sides as to, well, how do you make this fair? And where you've actually articulated, well, there are mathematical processes that we can put in place and embed in the technology to make it. Sometimes, someone that sits on the non-technological side of the equation, oftentimes it's very easy for me to say that it must be transparent, it must be clear, it must be fair. But I really don't have an understanding of how that happens, and it's not always considered front of mind by the people that are actually their KPIs are to drive and operate the two. And so, in your opinion, how close are we, and from your experience operationally, in really creating that intersectional approach in a more widespread way? And do you think there's enough being done to say, no, when we're developing AI tools, this is different to some of the ways that we've been creating products and tools before now?
Okay. No, that's a good question. And firstly, I think we need to understand is that AI overall is not a weekend project. Yeah. AI to really create a sustainable impact. Typically, technologies like AI will take 2 generations of time, yeah, just to set the scale right. So that's important. So this will evolve. This is not 100 meters. This is
Yeah.
a marathon, and this is not 42 kilometers. This is a long shot. And hence this will evolve, right? This will evolve. And I already see yeah, movement in the industry towards ensuring that the risks that are associated with AI, there's a debate, how can we mitigate them? Because if the risk is mitigated, it's possible then to make AI, profitable, possible then to make AI sustainable, and it's then possible to put it in this framework where it gets the positive mandate of the users, right? I think it would be stupid of anyone to know that there is risk and then not still act on it. So I see action in multiple buckets. I see action by governments where there are laws coming in. For example, EU AI law is pretty comprehensive law, and they are handling AI from a risk management point of view. And then there are many discussions and studies and debates in US on how do we handle it, and they take a slightly different kind of an approach where they feel that law and regulation can stifle it, and then maybe it's better to keep it more free and believe in self-regulation, and it's still evolving here. And then in other countries there are different approaches based on the local sensitivities. But I also see a lot of movement with organizations, technical organizations, like we already have now 42,001, which is this ISO IEC guideline for AI. We have codes of conduct. We have now academic courses for algorithmic bias in universities and in colleges, right? And then we also see, very surprisingly, in the recruitment drives, companies are recruiting philosophers and companies are recruiting sociologists and making them part of this AI movement. So hence, there is a lot of action which may not get the press that it deserves. At what's happening, it's not just an industry thing. I think there is an escalating collaboration between industry and academia, and diverse stakeholders are attempting to come together to create something beneficial for this. Because the baseline here is that sometimes we tend to overestimate the risk of AI and underestimate its potential, because the potential of AI is something which can really help us to solve the tough problems that we face as a species. And hence, I'm a big supporter of debate, of collaboration. Like, we already see a lot of things happening. For example, in EU AI law, if there's an AI application which is based on, say, social scoring or modifying somebody's behavior based on deceptive means, it will not get the green light. You cannot even work on it. You forget selling it. So such activities are already happening. Then we have the red teams, and then we have the platforms and frameworks like the Alan Turing, which I explained, wherein you start right from the basics. Is this model going to enhance the respect, autonomy of an human, right? So when you sum up all of this, I think we are on a path. It's the initial phase of the journey. There will be teething problems, but I'm an optimist, and I think we'll figure it out as we go along. But this is going to take time.
I really love the optimism with your sharing of the things that you're seeing at that macro level really starting to change in the way that we're approaching it, for sure. I wanted to come back to that interconnection with humanity and pick up a bit on something you spoke about earlier in terms of algorithmic bias. And one of the challenges that was kind of thrown out at us fairly early on in its development. And something I'm really interested for your thoughts on are that when we've seen tools get created that have highlighted an algorithmic bias. So, Amazon had a hiring tool that depicted that started to favor for men over women expressly. You mentioned like with race, we've have tools that in the US that support judges in sentencing. Financial institutions will start to automate loan approvals process and can show, gender bias and other biases. And I've often seen, you'll see the organization say, oh, this tool is biased. We're going to halt that. We'll take it off and go away and work on it. But as you pointed out, what those tools are doing is that they're embedding a bias that is evident in the data sets that feed into it. And what I don't see so much of, if at all, is an organization saying, oh my goodness, for the past 50, 30, 70 years, we've been favoring men in our hiring process, or we've not been giving enough loans to women, or, that we have clearly behaved in this way. And that's what's produced this bias that's embedded in the tool. What are your thoughts on this? And what do you think this whole process should be telling us about ourselves? Because there are times when I feel like AI is just holding up a mirror and we're very quick to blame the AI. And I don't see as much of the personal introspection on what we need to do as a culture to make sure that, the data sets of tomorrow will in and of itself mitigate bias in AI.
No, I think that's a fair question to ask. And I think, as I said, that AI is, if I misuse this word, is in its infancy. And there is an adulthood to come, and then there'll be a teenage, and then there's a middle age, and that's how this will progress. So this is pretty early times, and I think there is also a lot of improvement in how we are assessing, isolating bias in data sets. And quick example I can give you is the data set of images. Yeah, in the past, say in 2014, 2015, if you looked at data sets, maybe 80% of the images were of white men. And 60% of population is in Asia, right? And then image data sets had very limited Asian representation. We forget, it was neither the Asian men nor the Asian women, and it's all kind of white people. And then this got flagged, and then the image data sets that you see now, there is already a fair representation. But it has taken from 2014, 2015 to where we are now. I think the good part that is happening in AI, there's a bottoms up push for making it inclusive, for making it fair, for making it something which helps us to create impact in a positive manner. Yeah. So I see incremental progress in this, or maybe it is not becoming very, very visible, but from the position that I am in, I definitely see improvements in this. I think the question is that, can we do something itself with the data set wherein this becomes a new innovation and bias can certainly be eliminated? There's a talk of synthetic data, which is then not coming from humans, And this is interesting, and there is a lot of research happening around this. Is that can we create synthetic data which is devoid of bias? There are pros and cons here, and there are camps now here that some say that no, it's just not possible, and some say it is possible. I think we'll have to wait for what happens here. But from my point of view, I already see uh, bias in data sets which emanates from humans getting attention. For example, now we have organizations coming up with data cards, like which clearly show that what is the origin of this data, what is the provenance of this data, how this data was classified. So, for example, here in Singapore, when you go to buy food, you have this ABCD, which classifies that what kind of food it is, and if it is A, it's extremely healthy, and then if you move towards D, it is not. So something like that is also happening, where we categorize that what exactly is the processing and origin of this. This is just a quick example that I can talk about.
Yeah, again, just really interesting new ways, I think, of thinking about. I suppose for me, where it connects to is saying, and I'm getting inspired by your optimism here, but what we're starting to see, or what I hear, is actually the things that we need to address in order to have robust AI that we can reap the benefits of and manage the risks of, is actually quite a change in almost the way that we're creating things, the way that we're doing business, in that now we're actually starting to think about this like the intersectional implications, because and that the positivity of actually having a circumstance which forces us to bring those two elements and together is a really interesting one for me to see how it evolves and how it has the ability to shape how decisions get made when we're building new things. And it also strikes to support coming up with the things that we want AI to help fix. It's almost like you can see where you can start to see more problem statements come out that you think, oh, I wonder if AI can fix it. I do find this is the first time hearing about the synthetic data idea, which I have to admit, at its first impact, strikes me as almost like a get out of jail free card, in terms of, oh, well, if we can't be the people that we want to be in order to come up with the right solutions, then we'll just sort of create something that is. But I suppose you can't take the humanity out of that, because someone has to decide what that data should look like. So I suppose that throws up questions in and of itself. But I think you've reiterated a few times, like this is a marathon. This is like long term. It's here to stay, and we will sort of figure this out as we go. And perhaps, as you know, as I mentioned right at the outset, right at the moment, AI is just a buzzword everywhere, and everyone is weighing in, and all of us have varying levels of knowledge and an inside track into how things are moving forward. And sometimes we hear, oh, well, we're right now in the midst of this digital revolution, of this AI revolution. And that's going to be a natural inflection point at which people will have all kinds of extremes of views, and it will all kind of peter down as we start to go through the motions in a really methodical way. And, the same thing happened with agricultural revolution and industrial revolution. And then we all kind of settled in. And here in Singapore, I've heard, analogies like, when we put cars on the road, they didn't start out with seatbelts and with airbags, and we kind of fitted them as we went and as we got that data point. Can we take the same approach, do you think, with AI? Do you have a view on, as we take this long road to all the benefits that AI can bring to our world, do you find yourself addressing this concern about singularity, about this point at which artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, and then we don't actually there might be a point where we don't have as much control as we might have now on the direction that it takes?
Okay. So firstly, I mean, on this question of optimism in AI, I think optimism stems from performance, right? So For example, I can talk about a use case before I can go into the answer of your previous question. Is that, and so in biology, for example, there was a 50-year-old challenge which we were not able to solve, and it was linked to proteins. So proteins, there are around 200 million proteins in nature, 200 million, and in our body, thousands of proteins. So proteins get sourced and synthesized from amino acids, right? So some 2000 bases, and then these amino acids fold and unfold in 3D structures, and then they make the proteins. Typically, it takes one PhD student around 4-5 years to decipher one protein structure. 4 to 5 years. So his entire project is to decipher one structure, which takes 4 to 5 years. Now, I told you we have 200 million possible proteins into nature, and how they unfold and fold, that possibility is almost infinite. So it can take millions and millions of years for us to do this. Now, drug discovery, medicine, vaccines, health span is all based on how quickly we are able to understand these structures. So this is directly linked to the possibility and good life. And you will be surprised to know that an AI model called AlphaFold deciphered all the 200 million protein structures last year, in the last few years. And the Nobel Prize this year was given to Demise, who is now the CEO of Google DeepMind, was instrumental in creating this AlphaFold, he and his team. And now we have a great chance to defeat disease. We will be, even if new epidemics come, we will be able to make vaccines in a very, very time. So this is a unique case wherein AI has really impacted in a very, very positive and an effective manner. This is just a small example of how AI can create scale, because the multidimensionality that AI has, our thinking models cannot compete with it. So we can shorten the time that humans need to solve problems. AI can do it faster. So it also depends on what kind of problems you are picking up to solve the problems. For example, there's a chance for us to solve climate change with AI. So hence, that's the reason for my optimism in AI. It will really make lives looks like healthier. That's for sure. That's what's going to happen. And coming to your question of that, how this will flow and singularity. So what is going to happen is that there will be waves in AI. So there will not be this one single point that on 15th of January and 2028, now from today, there is singularity. No, it's not going to be like this. So this is going to happen in waves. So we had, for example, once a transformer architecture mainstream, we had the large language models, which was based on text. And then we went into multimodality of large language models, where now video and audio and text is getting together to create a model. Then we said that these models are good, but they don't understand, they don't reason. And now we have reasoning models, which we are coming. In the next 2 years, we will have agentic AI, wherein these agents will plan, and you can ask your personal agent, is that, okay, you have now $10,000. What can we do with it? And how can you, if your aim is to amplify your wealth, it can give you some very, very credible, interesting solutions of how you can amplify your wealth. If you want to reduce your wealth, it can also tell you that. I leave that to you. Right? So agentic AI is going to come, and there is going to be a lot of focus on reasoning, understanding, and awareness at the last. And I think we sometimes confuse between knowing and understanding. So knowing is awareness, but understanding is processing and applying that awareness is understanding. So it starts with knowing and then goes to understanding, and then that understanding becomes knowledge. From knowledge comes purpose, right? So this is all kind of linked. So currently, I think there is focus on reasoning and understanding, wherein the models are really understanding what they are creating. So that's work in progress. Can take 3 to 4 years to 5 years. Some people are saying next year, but my guess is that it's going to take some time. It took millions of years for us to become what we have become. So it's going to take some time. But I see singularity not coming at a particular date. This will be in waves. The next clear wave for me is agentic AI, and then I think followed by next steps.
Again, I have to thank you for breaking that down and also blowing our minds a bit with really thinking and keeping front of mind the potentiality of AI. For me, it really comes down to starting with those questions. Why? What is it for? Who is it for? How are we going to do it at the outset? Now, Sudhir, as you know, the title of this podcast is Unbiased. And in our move from judgment to curiosity, I do think we ought to have many more questions than answers. I think posing the right questions is what makes you stand out among the crowd in this space. And so it's something that I'm asking all my guests to leave us with. But Sudhir, can you leave us with a question that you think listeners should be asking more of as we get stuck into this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good chance to bring in phenomenology, which is the experience, which is the philosophical way of dealing with experiences. And in this, if cognition and intelligence was a kind of an Olympics race, then humans had the gold medal in it. Our cognition is we can make a mental model of our environment, we can interpret it, we can imagine things, we can think about the future, we can learn from the past. I think no other species can have this kind of a mental model. And now we are getting challenged by an entity which is made of silicon. So the question from my side, which is very, very interesting, is that what have we done that our position as being the gold medalist in the Olympics of cognition is severely challenged and threatened? And that's a question for introspection also, because humans in this race and journey of AI, we have been losing some key ingredient. For example, we already in the social media revolution, we lost attention. Our average attention is not more than few seconds now. Yeah, it's less than 10 seconds. Yes. So it will be kind of interesting is that what more we have to lose as we move forward in this journey. And I think our position as this gold medalist in the Olympics of cognition is short-lived. I see that. And who is to be blamed for that? I think it's us, is because we were not responsible. Look what we did to nature. We are polluting oceans. Yeah, there's inequality, there are wars. And I think we don't deserve this kind of position that we are in. And maybe we need a reality check, a shock, and AI provides that. And hence AI for me is not an authority. AI is a mirror. And I think as people, we need this kind of a mirror to shake us up and smell the coffee.
Wow. So there, after, a good half an hour of optimism, you're bringing us back down to earth with some reality there. That question, there are so many questions within that question of what have we done to actually consciously and actively find a challenger for ourselves as gold medalists to overtake us. So many questions that arise from that, Sudhir. I just want to thank you again for your time and your insights and your thoughts on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I derive so much energy from speaking to such inspiring guests and having really meaningful and challenging conversations. If you felt the same way, my ask of you is to please subscribe to this podcast, either here or wherever you download your podcast content from. Unbiased is a labor of love for me, and the impact that these perspectives have depend on reaching as many eyes and ears as possible. So your support is invaluable. Until next time, stay curious.